Our circumstances don't define us. Our actions do. We all have moments of impact. What are you going to do with yours? Now that I'm back with my family in St. Louis, and I'm truthfully, I'm learning how to be a son. I left when I was 18. I've been gone for 24 years to almost 25 years. I'm 43 now. I kind of forgot how to be a son, to show up for my parents. I forgot how to be a brother. With my sisters, I forgot, like, I was an uncle, but I was like an occasional show up uncle. Like, I'm really now thinking, how would I be proud to act as a son, as a brother, as a friend? Like, that's more what I'm learning now. And there's things I wish I would have done back then, but obviously I can't do anything about that. But this idea of not needing the wake up call, like the story with your mom, we all have those moments to where, like, life feels short. It feels like it's not as long as we think, but I don't want to live a life in a way of which, again, I'm not perfect in any way, shape, or form. There's always going to be things I wish I would have done, and so on and so forth. But if I can just have less moments of the I wish I would haves and more moments of the I'm proud and I'm glad and I'm grateful that I did. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be times when I'm speaking out on the road, flying airport to airport, city to city, to where that's going to be heavy for me, because I'm not going to be able to show up like I want to, like for all the people I just said, but I'm also preparing myself. And the thing, when you talk about, like, when it's just you realize kind of who you are. I was actually preparing myself on the weekends, because how I treat my free time, I knew, I hardwired my brain. That's how I'm going to treat whenever I go full time in this. So I wasn't having to, like, reclaim my identity. I thought, like, if I'm sitting around on a Saturday now, back then, 200 days ago, if I'm sitting around on a Saturday with my free time, that tells me what my priorities are. And so I had to be honest with myself. But it wasn't like a beat down of you're this and you're that. It was a matter of, if you actually want the things that you say that you want, and this could be the relationship you want, the financial freedom that you want, the city you live in that you say that you want, the longer that we go just saying what we want without taking steps towards it, it decreases our belief that we can ever commit to doing the thing, not having the thing, right? Like, I could have quit 4 years ago. So the quitting wasn't the thing. It was me becoming the person who was ready to handle the pressure that comes with it, who really looked himself in the mirror and was like, you're not doing it. Just like we've talked about doing the thing, right? We talked a little bit about that before the show, but it's like, right, if going on and doing a podcast was doing the thing, right? If I wanted to be a professional podcaster, that's fine. That's not what I'm doing, right? Keynote speaking. So what does that mean? How often am I working on the craft? How often am I thinking about every audience? How often am I sitting in front of something, reading, learning, becoming, getting mentors, going to National Speaker Association meetings? Like, I'm going to one tonight. How often am I surrounding myself with that? And, like, I had to own that I wasn't. I was just wanting something, not wanting to do the thing to be actually having the thing that I say that I want. And like I said, this isn't even just about business ownership. This is about, like I said in the very beginning, living deeply, right? Loving with intention and showing up fully in your life. Like, that is 3 choices that aren't just every once in a while. And that's what I'm literally living the rest of my life doing. But it's also helping other people believe that it's possible for them to, again, without the financial freedom. Again, if they have multiple kids, it's hard for somebody just to say, okay, quit your job, right? Some people aren't in that chapter. And I've had some people say, I want to do this too, but they can't because of certain things. But it's a matter of, like, how can you work on becoming the person that has the impact you want to have on other people's lives? And the way that you've impacted my life in multiple ways, right? Obviously not what you've produced for me. I would say the biggest impact you've had is the conversations we've had. Right. It's you believing in me. It's you creating something that somebody else saw that thought, if I'm investing time, effort, energy, and paying somebody to do that, that's obviously something he's not just doing on the side. Right. And you've even said that too before, where like perceptions and stuff. But like the thing that really mattered the most was how I actually saw myself, not how other people saw me. But those two things were happening at the same time. I just wasn't aware of it.
Right. Yeah. That's one of those things where like we talked a little bit about in our podcast of becoming the whole you. But like you can also intentionally, like you want to be a speaker. So like you just said, sometimes you got to recognize what it takes to be that. And then you decide, do I want to do that? That is the choice. But that choice is made harder if you are that. If you are you and you're trying to be something different, that choice is always harder than leaning into what you actually do and want to do and who you actually are. For me, it's very easy for me to lean into being a creative because that's just what I do. That's who I am. I'm wired that way. Now looking back at my whole entire life before I ever picked up a camera, I was always looking at like, I would be on the bus to school as a little kid and look and see the mist rising out of a pond and see the sun coming and there's mist on the ground and to see the sunrise coming through and I'm like, that would make a good picture. I remember thinking that as a little kid. Now I do that for a living. So ever since I was little, I was wired to do this. I was always a creative. I just had to figure out what form of creativity could sustain a living. I still love music. I still love playing music. I still make music. But that's in Lebanon, Missouri, playing heavy metal music isn't going to sustain my life for my family and get us to level up. So I had to make that choice. Do I lean into what actually makes me some money that I also equally love, or probably honestly more than music? Or do I go the very, very, very hard path of trying to become a professional musician? That choice was pretty easy for me to make because this allowed me to do the same things and I can play music for the fun of it. And I think that also gets lost sometimes. We were talking at the beginning about some people just aren't cut out to do this. And more people need to recognize that you can actually just have something you like to do and keep it as something you like to do. If you like playing basketball, that doesn't make you an NBA player. Those guys are special for a reason. They're in the NBA for a reason. But if you want to become a professional basketball player, if you're not willing to be the guy that goes to the park and plays 5-on-5 every weekend by not being paid for it, then you're never going to be as in love with the thing to be able to do what it takes to get to that level. So that's also another, people need to be open and honest with themselves. And I feel like that's something that people just don't do. And it's not like that's a now thing. That's a forever. That's been a thing. Years and years and years, decades and decades ago, people were, I wouldn't say pigeonholed, but there was way less options. Now there's more options. If you want to clean baseboards for a living, you can probably make a business out of that. Now, is your passion cleaning baseboards? Probably not. But if you can do that and that will afford you to be able to go on vacation 3 times a year and you really love to travel, that might be a way for you to get to your dream, which is actually traveling and seeing more of the world by having the freedom of having your own business and making your own schedule. But you need to do this thing that you're actually really good at that most people don't want to do, and they'll pay money for it. That's also a way to go about your life. And that's not you compromising who you are or doing anything like that. That is a means to an end. We're going through all of this right now with my stepdaughter, Shay. She thought she wanted to do something, didn't want to do it, tiptoed her toes into it, realized she didn't like it. The only thing she really, really loves to do is speak Spanish. She's been learning Spanish for like the last 6 years or something, and she's become to where she's fluent and she can speak it, she can understand it. So there's options though. Now you could teach English to Spanish people. That's an option. And that's something that she never even thought was a thing. But now we're looking into options of like, if that's what you really want to do, that's a pretty narrow pool of of possible careers, but there is a pool of careers. You gotta play within that pool if that's what you really want to do and that's who you are. But if you really love Spanish and that's what you want to do and you want to speak more of it and be engrossed in the culture, maybe you got to look at some other options that you've never thought of or things like that. So it's not always as straightforward as, oh, I'm a creative person, I need to pick up a camera. Oh, I like to speak and change people's perceptions and upgrade their lives, so I need to be a public speaker. Sometimes it's really not that straightforward. It's more of like a curve pattern, and sometimes it's a down pattern, and you gotta make it to the top of the mountain, to use your logo as an example. Like, you don't start out at the top of the mountain. And like we talked about before, you have to sometimes, with the balance thing, you gotta get to the top of the mountain, or that's your goal. And you got to figure out who's worth taking on that mountain with you, because every person you add is more weight. So your family is that weight. For me, I will never not carry my family up the mountain. You gotta figure out your own life and who's worth being on your mountain with you. But there's different paths that you can go in, and all of them have their own stuff. There's never I guess never would be wrong, but a lot of times there is no, I want to do this, and a clear path to success to do that.
Yeah.
And if there is, I would love to see it, because I think all of us would benefit from that information. Yeah. But if you listen to I listen to a lot of podcasts, I know you do, about people who have been successful at whatever they want to do in life. Tony Robbins is a good example, very public example of that, of figuring out what he wanted to be from a young age and not knowing exactly how he was going to become that, but become the person who could do what he wanted to do, but knowing who he was and the impact he wanted to make.
Yeah.
He knew that from a young age because of a specific moment. Then he has to figure out how to get him to that place to be able to impact that many people. But he could have done that 7 trillion different ways. It's not as straightforward as become a motivational speaker or get people to donate money so you can feed people who don't have, Thanksgiving meals.
Yeah.
So there's a million different ways to go about it, but
yeah. Well, one of the things that I'm just reflecting a lot on now. So if a lot of people are kind of sitting there thinking like, okay, it makes sense. We're speaking something that's not uncommon, but the actions that people take after hearing this is where that's what separates everybody. So if I were to really, and you've heard me say this before, but it's pain and purpose are typically the two things that make us make drastic changes, make us believe in ourselves, have the courage, find the courage to do the daring thing. And for me, it wasn't pain from anything that I was doing in my life. It was the purpose of actually what I was meant to be doing that I was certain of. And so it was like, I'm here on earth to do something bigger than what I'm currently doing. So that was my purpose that led me there.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not saying your chapter in that you kind of why you did what you did was more of a pain piece, right? But sometimes it could be that, like, you didn't like the factory job, you weren't able to provide it, right? That's what I mean by pain. And so from what you shared with your story today, I know there's more to your story than that. But right. So it's a matter of like understanding for people, everything about our lives has shaped us. It may have feel like it's been breaking us at some point, but everything has been shaping us. There's lots of things that I could go into. If you've read Grateful Leadership, in the middle of page 2, I talk about a suicidal chapter in my life. So it's not like we've just woken up like this, right? We've maybe woken up, right? So the people talk about the 2 most important days of your life is the day you're born and the day you realize why. Now, the reason why I'm kind of pouring into some of this stuff is like everything, look back at your life and realize, are you trying to prove somebody right? Are you trying to be who your younger self needed? Are you trying to prove somebody wrong? Because typically we'll look at influences we had back then and we'll feel like we were either empowered and inspired by those people, Like, or we will recognize that some people like Michael Jordan, like Kobe Bryant, like all these people saying that you're never going to make it, Steph Curry, you're never going to make it. So those people are like, I'm going to prove that person wrong. But even as a grown man, when they say, when did the shift happen? He says, when my teacher told me I couldn't. So the reason why I say that now is look back at the thing that either you've been trying to prove somebody right or wrong in your own life. And sometimes it's yourself, but a lot of times it's somebody else who you trusted that maybe made you feel a way that you still carry, and recognize that thing. And I know you've talked about the relationship even with your dad and just all the things, right? We all have something that we're carrying that we may not think about a lot, we may not talk about a lot, but it's kind of always with us. That's how fresh it can be sometimes. But also understanding as you go through your own chapter, if you're fortunate enough to have kids in your life, you are showing them and you're having the impact on them in the way that the people in your life did previously. So as I stop and think about one of my middle sister, she has her own business. I now have my own business. My other sister is super successful as a executive level in another business. Now, if you were to really look back and think, oh, well, of course, right? Our paths could not be any more different. Our actual jobs could not be any more different. And so now really what I'm doing is looking back at what influenced us to even get us there, because some people didn't have that influence. Some people had that, here's what you do. And this is a book that I'm reading or listening to right now on Audible, but it's called Generations. Heard Tony Robbins talk about it, saying every president has it on their desk. I was like, okay, well, if these people, so history has a tendency to repeat itself. So if right now you're thinking, I can't do any more than I can, I'm stuck in the job that I'm in, that's as good as I can do. And this is not meant to be pressure. This is not meant to be calling people out. This is meant to be just be aware that you're also teaching your family and the people around you the same thing.
All right.
And so your children are learning that with hard work, not that anything's possible, but with hard work, with commitment, with sacrifice, with love, with discipline, with gifts, all these things, something more is possible. And again, talking about everybody pursuing their dreams creates this, well, what is my dream? What is it even? I think, like what is the thing that you really want to be doing? But it's also, you have to make the choice that if you can make $1 million a year, but you only saw your family an hour a night, would you do it? 99% of the people would say, absolutely not. But we're giving so much credit and pressure to, and this is where another Tony quote, Robbins, but the science of achievement, the art of fulfillment. What I pursued for the first 42, well, actually, I left on my birthday. So technically 43 years of my life was achievement. For the last, well, really, okay, so it's going to be a blur, right? But for 14 years now, 14 years I've been pursuing something else. But the tension that I felt, I wanted fulfillment more than I wanted achievement. Those two things can be the same, right? But typically we pick one lane or the other.
All right.
But it's really this, fulfillment isn't just about me. It's about how do I impact other people? How do I show up in a way that I'm proud? And Mel Robbins even talks about that. Like, what was the biggest moment in her life? She said, when I decided I wanted to live a life I'm proud of. And she's been doing successful things a lot. Everybody's learning and growing in their space. So this is like somebody who's actually listening to this, still with us on minute 58. What is the thing that you've been carrying with you, whether it's the pain or the purpose, and use that thing. Right. And this is where when I talk about shifting my pain to my purpose, right? The regret, the shame, the things that I wish I would have. Now I'm doing it differently. But it's also this idea of what kind of impact do you want to have on the people that you love the most? And, I text my friends from time to time, just, how are you doing? Is there any way that I can show up for you? Now, that's not because of anything about me, but it's just like, I want the people in my life to know that like, I'm authentically glad that I get to be in their life, and having a relationship, a connection with them makes me the person that I am. It impacts me. And, there'll be another episode I'm sure we'll do about some of these other things about relationships and connection, but it's just like, who am I right? That's what you're saying. Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Who is but not how do I want people to see me, but who you actually are when you are that person all the time, whether you know me or not, whether I'm meeting somebody or not, whether I'm at the grocery store, no matter what the thing is. Like we've talked about, when you squeeze an orange, you always get orange juice. So if you're trying to put on a front and you're faking who you are at work so that you can, but you're somebody different at home, honor yourself enough to just be who you are wherever you are, because that's when people really connect with you. That's when people really see you. You have to be willing to see yourself first so people can see you. And that's what you've been doing, right? And so just even you talking about some of the other competitors that you have in your space, you are locked in on who you are and what you are, and not trying to be better than anybody else. You're just trying to be better than who you were yesterday. That's where the freedom comes from. I'm not trying to be the best speaker in the world because some bureau or somebody voted on something that says I'm number one. I'm trying to be as great as I can be without sacrificing the things that mean the most to me. But I'm also wanting to be better than I was yesterday. And so if somebody hears me speak this year, I'm going to be a different person next year, and I'm going to have different heart and different stories and different examples and more of me. I'm going to become more of me in every chapter, but I had to accept how I was showing up for myself and showing up for others before I was actually willing to do the things that most align with who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I've been thinking about lately is intention. And everything you're saying kind of flows along that same line, but
choices,
like being who you are intentionally, doing the actions intentionally. Like I could have went to that MMA event and just been fine with standing there, but I was all over the place. I wasn't just cage shied. I walked out with Ray. I want to put myself in it. I want to be in the thing and capture that moment. But I also had a guy, I hired on another person to come with me to be up in the top of the stand so that I had another perspective. And just knowing and being intentional, I don't want to just create a video. That's never what I want to do. I want to make the video of the thing. Not because of anybody else or I want anybody else's to be looked down on. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm working towards. Why would I ever spend 10 years of my life trying to improve all my skills and make a 4K recording of podcasts and do all this stuff and then be okay with anything less than whatever I could intentionally make the best of? It doesn't compute to me, which also sometimes honestly is a hindrance. I have to know that. And I do know that. I know that sometimes me being who I am comes at a little bit of a cost. I can't just be okay with sitting down and pressing record. I have to put a big light right here, and I got to put a hair light right up here above me, and I got to put a lamp over here and a lamp over here, and I had to repaint this whole wall and redo this whole entire studio to make it more versatile. I have a teleprompter that TJ's on right in front of me so that I can look at him and the camera at the same time. I have my computer right here. I'm sitting at a desk. I have a backup recording of this whole thing happening right here for the audio and the camera. I have a second camera angle that people have been seeing this whole time across the room over there. I can't just do the thing. I have to do the thing to the best of my ability or it's not worth doing to me. But that's just who I am. And I have to be comfortable with that. And I am comfortable with that, which is the part that people don't normally get to. I'm okay with that. And I know that that's me, and I'm going to embrace it because that's what separates me from everybody else, especially in this area that I'm in. There is nobody else that's really, really pushing themselves, doing what I'm doing. I'm saying like doing all the different areas. There is no one doing sports photography like what I'm doing because I don't want to just take a photo. I want to make memories that people want to look back at. I have senior photos of myself that are absolutely horrendous. And I feel like that's kind of a universal thing. That's like a trope with senior photos is that you never want to look at them again.
Can you do them?
I want to take photos that people actually want to look at and they want to show off to their kids because they looked so awesome. I mean, times are going to change. Hairstyles are going to change. I've taken photos, unfortunately, of a couple kids with mullets the past couple of years. And I'm like, the whole time, you're going to hate this later. Your kids are going to make so much fun of you. But all the other aspects that I can control that photo were great. So that's my kind of goal, is to live in a way that's intentionally me. I'm going to work in a way that's intentionally me. I'm going to talk with my friends and be open and honest. If I could sum up me for anyone, it is that I'm 100% honest and 100% open. I will tell you anything you want to know, and I will, if you ask my opinion on something, you are getting my actual opinion and not a watered down, sprinkled, sugary version because I think you'll like it. Now, there are certain times where I don't want to just crush people's hopes and dreams if I think something's terrible or something like that, but that's being encouraging towards someone rather than like, and I think that's why people automatically have, ever since I was a little kid, people have just trusted me. I've always had that as something that, and I think that's just from me being me. I've always, since I knew I wanted to run track in high school. That was my whole thing. I wanted to run track, and I had my own band. I wanted to play music and run track. That was my identity. That's who I was. Anybody knew me as the fast guy. That's the really fast guy. Anytime I would be on the line about to get down in the blocks for a race, I was always in lane 4 because that's where they put the fastest person. I also then took that for granted in high school, now looking back. And I probably didn't work as hard as I should have because I was always the fast guy. It was an expectation that I was the fast guy. And so I probably didn't work as hard and push myself as hard as I could have back then because I didn't have to. Mm-hmm. There's a story that I've never told my track coach, and I might clip this and send it to him. So we were on a relay team. I was one of 4 people. It was the 4x100, which is one full lap around the track, split up into 4 people. So one person would start, run the corner. They would hand off the baton to the person that runs the back stretch. Then I was the third leg. So I ran the second corner, and then I would hand it off for the guy to finish the straight stretch. We were like hundredths of a second away from the record at our school, which had been there for like 20 something years at that point. So like, it was one of those where no one's beaten this. No one has beat it for a long time. And we were like hundredths of a second away. I did track all year long, off-season track. I did indoor track. Track was my life in high school. I have 112 track medals. My coach replaced me with the kid that transferred in when we were hundredths of a second away from the record. And in track season, you work to peak at the end of the season where you're going to conference and district and sectionals. The next race, we were expected to blow that out of the water, the record. They broke the record without me. Now looking back, my coach probably recognized that I thought I deserved to be on that team, and that I probably wasn't working as hard as I actually wanted or should have been to deserve to be on the team that broke the record. I don't know if that's his intention. That has always stuck with me. Though it's one of those moments where like now as an adult looking back and I have kids in high school, that's probably what happened. That I got a little bit complacent and he was like, maybe he doesn't deserve to break this record. I feel like, and have always felt like, and if I'm being honest with myself, there definitely was some of that, but I still feel like I probably should have been a part of the team and not been the guy who was replaced, but that coach is still the coach. He's actually retiring this year. We are really good friends. I've never said this to him. I've never told him this story, but that moment triggered something in me that was like, I'm never going to let the hard, how I'm going to push myself or how hard I'm going to work towards something. That's never going to be questioned or a factor ever again. I'm not ever going to be replaced. and the team's going to break the record without me because of my work ethic. That's never, ever, ever going to be the case again. So honestly, a lot of my success is probably credit to that one moment happening. And that's another example of like some of the times that happen to us in life that we really, really don't like in the moment can actually make us into who we become. That would be an example of that for me. Is I hated that. And I honestly, it made me really angry for several years. And I kind of held a grudge. And then I had to honestly look at myself and who I was. And yeah, I was a high school teenager. They broke the record and I never got the opportunity to prove my work ethic again after that. So now I live it. Like that's how I live. How hard I work is never going to be a factor on if the success is there or not.
Yeah.
I know that. And I know that I'm always going to do whatever's necessary. Again, that can also put you at a detriment. Like I can't just work myself into the ground. We've talked about that on a couple of different episodes that we've been on. I have that issue now. And it probably honestly stems from some of that is that I'm not going to be outworked. If there's one thing I will have on everyone, it's how much I'll put into it. You got to also take that. You got to balance that out a little bit. I had to really learn how to take some time off. Yesterday and the day before, we painted this whole entire studio and I didn't open my computer. And it feels like I've wasted the last 2 days. Like internally in my head, I'm like, I didn't even get any work done. But in reality, I was setting all of this whole space in the studio and the potential for all the work that is to come. But it feels like I went backwards. That's how my head always goes. And sometimes I got to keep that in check. But that was just a story that I don't know if you have anything like that has ever happened to you to where like, I feel like that's pretty universal. There's moments in people's lives that make them into who they are. Mm-hmm. And you have to make the choice. Either I could have held that grudge forever. Then I wouldn't have had a relationship with that coach now. I've shot videos on his kids with the Extra Mile series that I produce about taking like exceptional student athletes and making a little vignette piece on them. His daughter was one of the ones that I shot. We have a great relationship. I text him all the time. If I would have held on to that grudge forever and just let that boil forever and not take a step back and honestly look at who I was and what I was acting like. And that's the best thing probably that ever happened to me in terms of me being able to do anything as an actual career and put my all into something. He taught me that lesson, maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally. Lessons can be lessons and they can actually shape who we become. And it can be for the better, even if it hurts in the time it happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing about when we're ready to receive it. And, you know, I think coaches serve such a special place. I've played sports my whole life. But it became less of this is what you should do. And it became, this is who I am. And it was, some of it was to make other people proud. Some of it was because I wanted to be the best. And, you know, there's different things. But there was a coach, Coach Whipke, Jim Whipke. So he's actually a superintendent now. I cannot wait to connect with him. He's somewhere here in St. Louis. We've connected on Facebook, but, and he's said, I'm proud of you and, you know, different things, seeing me speak and all this. But, so I'm super excited to connect with him, but his intensity, his doing the right thing, doing the extra thing, being consistent, being disciplined, who you are all the time, shows up when it matters most, like that mentality. I mean, he never yelled at us, but when he spoke, he said it with intention, and I'll never forget it. And he had standards. You work your tail off in practice or you don't play in the game.
Right.
So for me, I learned you work your butt off when you don't get rewarded for it so that you can be at your best when you need to. So as a speaker, the hours and hours and hours that people never see of me reading and tweaking. And I don't just have a template that I just go speak about. If you've ever heard me speak, you'll never hear the same thing twice. You've heard me speak a lot. I may not say the same thing twice because I'm not reciting anything, right? It's because I've practiced it. But the other thing, and an example of this was, he put me he put a captain's armband around my arm, and it was more because of my work ethic and more on the influence that we can have when we don't see the work as an obligation, we see it as an opportunity. And I'll never forget, there was a game that we didn't play well. Our team, it was like way out. It was an hour drive after school, right? All these things.
Yeah.
And it was a JV game. It wasn't even a varsity game. And we drove out there. We knew we were better than the team. We played like we were better than the team. We won like 3-0. Played terrible. Didn't follow through on anything. Didn't execute anything. We were just physically better than the other team. And he looked at all of us after that game. Didn't say a word. He walked onto the bus. Normally he has a thing that we learn and all the stuff, right? And I said, boys, we know we didn't do our best. And we need to prove to coach that we know that we're better. So we did sprints. We did sprint. He was sitting on the bus by himself, bus driver waiting. We took all of our gear back off and did sprints on the field. We did back and forths, and we got on the bus, and he said, now that's the team that I came here for. But like, it gives me chills even thinking about it. He just probably doesn't even know that thing even happened. Like, it's probably irrelevant for him, but like, we would do extra runs to prove to him that we were, that we knew that the effort mattered. We didn't get anything for doing those sprints. Nothing was going to happen. We won the game. It was fine. But it was like, if you sacrifice who you are, even though you get what you want, you don't really know who you are. Then you're lying to yourself. And like, that's the lesson I want to pull from the thing I just shared. You can sometimes get the thing that you want. I just heard a guy, Jeff Kozatek, he was talking yesterday about getting 1,000 YouTube subscribers. And he said, I really want that. And I said, and we just had a discussion. It wasn't him saying anything other than he's a leadership. He's a keynote speaker as well, and does a lot of great facilitation of workshops and stuff. But he said, well, I'm not posting videos like I should. So maybe that would help. I'm not putting my YouTube channel on my website. So maybe that would help. I'm not telling anybody about my page. So maybe that would help. But what he recognized just in the moment when we were talking is, I say that I want something, but I'm not actually doing the thing required.
Right.
And that tells you a lot about who you are. Like, you just want the outcome. You don't want to have to be the person. I said, well, you could pay. I get emails every single day if people want followers. Like, I could pay for 1,000 if that's what you want. Right. And I said, but wouldn't it be more meaningful if you had 1,000 people who actually watched, who actually listened, and who actually benefited from what you say? And he's like, well, yeah, of course that's what I want. Right. But that's the thing, is like, we can get caught up in wanting something so much that we sometimes forget who we need to become along the way. But but the who we become along the way, what we're really both saying and what we've been saying throughout this whole episode, you have to know who you are and what your standards are and what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do and what you're not willing to sacrifice. I guarantee you there's going to be many, many different times that I've blocked time because I have something going on with my family, and somebody's going to reach out and say, we want you to come be a keynote. And I'm going to say, I'm not available. If I wanted money more than, if I wanted this client that I can't lose, and what if I lose them and then they don't book, I'm already in this chapter of, I'm going to be prepared to say no when I need to, because that's who I am, right? I'm not caught up in what I'm trying to achieve. And so that's, I mean, the overarching message for us today, between our episode here, that we'll probably part one, part two it, but is really study yourself more than you study others. Be okay when you show up authentically and it's not perfectly in alignment socially, how everybody else thinks you should. There's a lot of people who say you shouldn't work so hard. There's a lot of people that say you shouldn't do weddings. You shouldn't shoot you shouldn't do senior photos. You shouldn't do podcasts. There's going to be a lot of those people. And taking advice from people that aren't doing what you're doing is probably not a successful plan. So now you could have entrepreneur to entrepreneur, two different places, right? I've taken a lot of advice from you. Whenever I said hope isn't a strategy for you, it struck a chord for you. And then, right, we talked about all that many different times.
Right.
But you have to be willing to put yourself into rooms that maybe you don't quite feel ready yet. But you also have to know, like, if it's really who you are and what you are, and you're not trying to get something from it, people will see that. And if it's in a relationship that you really want, you have to be willing to have the conversations and actually let somebody see you so that they can love you fully. And when you were talking about living with intention, it's about the daily choices that you're making have to be in alignment with how you see yourself and how you want to be seen by others and your impact, because standing still isn't an option these days. So if you're not making choices that take you closer to where you want to be, you're unintentionally making choices that take you further from where you want to be. That's just that's just black and white, right? But that's empowerment to where you can make new choices. You can wake up at a different time. You can walk if you want. You can read the book if you want. You can have the conversation if you want. You can apply for the job if you want. Intention. Thinking about, does this align with who I am? Does this align with the life I want to be living? Because those are the things when we're talking about living deeply, loving intentionally, and showing up fully. Showing up fully is fully you. Not all of you all the time to where you feel like you're burned out. It's a matter of like, that's where the art of fulfillment really comes from, is those three things. And you have anything else before I wrap up?
I don't think so. We've touched on every possible thing we could with this subject, I think, and probably went off the rails several times. So yeah.
Bryon, first of all, I want to say thank you for being on this episode again. I promise there's going to be more to come if you're willing to do it with me here. There's a lot more topics. We have some topics around identity. We have some topics around comfort. We have some other things that I really want to pour into with you. But for all the listeners, I hope you enjoyed this. Part 1, part 2, probably. Hope you enjoyed this, and you really started to reflect a little bit more on who you are and what you are, and just know that you deserve to live that life that's aligned with who you are. And I'll wrap up this episode like I do with all the rest of them now. I'm shifting this, but hoping that you feel inspired to go live grateful, live purposeful, and connected to the things that mean the most to you. So until next week, go be great, and I'll see you then.